In this presentation we're going to look at how to multiply using Chinese box method. You might have come across the method being called Napier's bones or diagonal grid method, but I generally call it Chinese box. We're going to look at how to multiply a 2-digit number by a 1-digit number, and the number 72 is a 2-digit number because it has 2 digits, and the number 3 is a 1-digit number, and that's pretty straightforward standard stuff that you should be quite comfortable with already. So how do we actually do this then? How do we use a grid or a box to enable us to multiply easily? Well, first of all we need to draw the box, and we need to draw it 2 squares across, and that's because 72 is a 2-digit number, and 1 square down because 3 is a 1-digit number. And there's our box. And now we cut each square diagonally in half, and this is really quite important, and you'll see why shortly. And we sort of created 2 triangles, one triangle here at this end, one triangle here at this end, and a diagonal stripe down the middle. And that really is also very important to our method. Just get rid of the squiggles and then we'll crack on with the method. So what do we do next? Well, we write our numbers around the top and the right edges. Clearly the 2-digit number goes at the top, so that's 72, and the 1-digit number goes at the side, and it's usually on the right. If you're left-handed you can choose to put it on the left, but you need to cut your boxes diagonally the other way. Now we're going to use a highlighter pen. If you've got a highlighter pen, this is a really useful thing to do, and colour in the middle stripe that I mentioned just now, and that makes a clear distinction between the 3 sections of the grid, the 3 diagonal sections. Why do we need 3 diagonal sections? Well, each section represents different place value, and the nature, the fact that they are diagonal means that the right digits that belong in the same place value all line up for you without having to do any extra work. If you're used to traditional multiplication, for instance, you may be used to putting a naught down and then multiplying. If you're multiplying by the 7 of 72, for instance, you don't have to do any of that with this method, and it cuts out an awful lot of carrying, you'll be very pleased to know. So it really is quite a neat method. So now we start to do the actual multiplication. Now I mentioned that each stripe or corner represented a particular place value, and here are the place values. So the bottom corner triangle are the units, the middle stripe that we coloured in with a highlighter pen is the tens, and the top corner triangle represents where the hundreds go. Now let's do some multiplying. It's quite easy. We multiply the number up here at the top of the box by the number over on the side. It doesn't matter whether we start with 7 or the 2. We could have done the 2 first, as long as you do them both. So that's all nice and neat and straightforward. Right then, so we work out 7 times 3, and if you're hot on your tables or you use your multiplication grid for 1-digit numbers, you will know that that's 21, and we enter it in the box like this. 2 goes in the top corner and the 1 goes in the bottom corner. Now you can see why we cut that box in half with a diagonal grid. The 2 are actually 2 hundreds and the 1 is actually a 10, and they're actually in the right locations because of how we've set that up. That's really very neat. Now we've done that, we multiply the other 2 digits together, so we need to multiply the 2 and the 3 together. Now 2 and 3, 2 times 3 I should say, that multiplies to give you 6. But if we put 6 here, that will be 6 tens, and actually we don't have 6 tens because 2 times 3 is just really 6 units. So what do we do? Well, if we've got a single digit answer and we put a 0 here in the tens stripe and the units go in the bottom corner. So if you end up with a multiplication that gives you a single digit answer, then it's 0 followed by that single digit answer. And there we go with that. Now what do we do? Well, we need to add up each of the each of the digits that are in the right place value. So we start as always by adding up the units. Well, this is really neat because there are only 6 units. The units are in this bottom corner here, and so we have the units already. The units are 6. Then in this sort of orangey stripe that we've got coloured in the middle, we've got 1 10 and no 10s. So 1 and 0 just gives me 1, so 1 goes at the bottom there. And over here in the top left hand corner I've got 2 hundreds, and I write that at the side. Now you must write the answer down underneath to show that you've understood what it all means. 72 times 3, or 3 times 72, is 216. Nice and straightforward. Here's another one for us to look at. 96 times 5. So I've drawn a 2 by 1 box, and now I'm going to cut them both diagonally in half, both my squares. Write my 96 at the top and my 5 at the side, and I've coloured in that diagonal stripe in the middle. What do we do now? Well, we can either do 9 times 5 and write the answer in the left hand box here, or we can do 6 times 5 and write it in the right hand box. I think, if I recall correctly, that I've done 9 times 5. I'm just having trouble erasing all my bits. There we go, let's try that. So let's fill that in. If you use your multiplication grid, you should be able to figure out that 9 times 5 is 45, 6 times 5 gives you 30, and now again we add up the stripes. So we look in the bottom corner here, we see there are no units, so we write 0 underneath. We look in the middle stripe here, we see there are 5 10s and 3 10s. We total them up, that gives us 8 10s. We write that underneath, and then we look in the top corner, we'll see that there are 4 hundreds. We write that over on the side. We must remember to write our final answer down. 96 times 5, or 5 times 96, gives you 480. 29 times 9. Can you remember what to do? Let's see. First of all, we do this. Did you remember that? Cut the boxes in half diagonally. That's really very important. Then we write the numbers around the side and colour in the middle stripe. There we go. And now we actually do the multiplying. It's such a neat method because we're only ever multiplying up to 9 times 9, which we've got here. So I'm going to start by multiplying 2 times 9. I'm writing that in. 2 9s are 18. And now I'm going to do 9 times 9. And 9 9s are 81. You can double check that if you're not sure. So I'm going to write that in. And now I'm going to total up my units, tens and hundreds. So starting here with the units, I know I've got 1 unit, so I can write that down straight away, and that always works. That's really good. Now I've got 8 10s and another 8 10s. That caused me a bit of a problem because now I've got 16 10s, and this slot here can only contain 1 digit. So in the usual way, we would write the 6 in the space we have here and carry the 1 into the hundreds. And this is the only carrying you will ever need to do with this method, you'll be pleased to know. So let's just see that in action. 8 plus 8 is 16. Write down the 6 at the bottom of the stripe and carry the 1. That's all there is to it. And then totaling up the hundreds now, we've got 100 and another 100. Add them together, 200s. So 29 times 9 using the Chinese box method, or 9 times 29, is 261. And if you're using this method for the first time, and you're not very confident that you have done it correctly, then it's a really good idea to check your answers on a calculator. Okay, so let's have another go. 19 lots of 8, 19 times 8. So we write the 2-digit number at the top and the 1 at the side. The first step though is always to cut our squares diagonally in half, because that's crucial, and don't forget to colour in that middle stripe, just to help you out with positioning your digits. You don't have to do that highlighting of that middle stripe, but as the numbers get bigger, as you learn to use this method more easily, you'll find it is very helpful. Anyway, back to the method. We'll start with 1 times 8. Now, 1 lot of 8 is just 8, so we will remember that when we have something like 8, we will always enter a 0 in the top corner here. and 9/8 is our second calculation, and that gives us 72, so we write that in the box as well, nice and easily. And now again we start adding up our units, tens and hundreds, and I hope by now you're starting to get the idea that the corner here on the bottom corner on the right represents the units, so you can write those down straight away. Now we've got to add up the blue digits in the middle stripe. 8 and 7 comes to 15, which again we can't fit, we can only fit a single digit here, so we write the 5 in the space and carry the 1 to show our 15. And let's see that in action much more neatly than I just did it. There we go. So there's our 15. We write the 5 down, carry the 1 to the next stripe. Now I've got 1, 100 and no hundreds, which gives me a total of 1. 1 and 0 makes 1. Remembering at this stage all you're doing is totaling up the single digits in each stripe. Okay, so this in this top corner here, for instance, don't read it as 10. It isn't 10, it's 1 plus 0. Okay, just to make sure that you get that right and to make sure that's nice and clear. Hopefully you wouldn't think that. But remember, at the end you must always write down your answer to show that you've interpreted what you have done. So 19 times 8 or 8 times 19 is 152, 152. Now I want you to have a go at these, and I also would like you to check your answers using a calculator. I've drawn a box for you. Don't forget to draw in those diagonal lines, they really are quite crucial, and draw your 2-digit number at the top, just like I have been doing, and your 1-digit number at the side, and have a go at doing the multiplication. I'm not giving you any answers for these because, as I said, it would be useful for you to check your answers on a calculator just to remind you how that all works. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you enjoy having a go at these calculations.